Die now, chicken. Humans threw orc warrior to hungry lion, unaware she was the trainer. The Colosseum of Redstone had a smell that never left your lungs once you breathed it in. Blood that had soaked into sand for 300 years, mixed with the sharp tang of fear sweat from 1,000 condemned souls, seasoned with smoke from torches that burned animal fat and produced a greasy black cloud that hung over the arena like a funeral shroud. It was the kind of smell that told you, people died here, often, and no one cared. Zara knew that smell well. She'd smelled it on battlefields, in war camps, in the dark corners of mercenary taverns where life was cheap and death was entertainment. But she'd never smelled it while wearing chains that weighed more than a human child, dragged across sand that still had yesterday's blood dried into dark patches like rust. The crowd roared. 5,000 human voices, screaming as one, demanding spectacle, demanding violence, demanding to see green blood spill for their amusement. The sound hit like a physical wave, not just noise, but hatred made audible, vibrating through the stone walls and sand and chains until even Zara's bones hummed with it. She was green. That was her crime. Green skin the color of deep forest moss, darker on her shoulders, where old battle scars formed patterns like tree roots growing under her flesh. Her tusks, ivory white and sharp enough to tear throats, jutted from her lower jaw. She stood 7 feet tall, even with a heavy iron collar forcing her head down, broad-shouldered and thick with the kind of muscle that came from swinging war axes since childhood. And she was beautiful in the way that terrified things are beautiful, like watching a wolf in moonlight or a storm rolling over mountains. Dangerous, inevitable, wrong in all the ways that mattered to the humans screaming for her death. Chicken! 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 The chant started somewhere in the upper seats and spread like disease through the crowd. They beat their fists against stone in rhythm with the word, creating thunder that shook dust from the ancient walls. Lord Marcus Blackthorne sat in the royal box, draped in purple silk that cost more than most farmers earned in a lifetime. He was handsome in that particular way that cruel men often are. Sharp cheekbones, cold blue eyes, a smile that had never reached those eyes even once in his 43 years of life. His fingers, heavy with rings that caught torchlight like trapped fireflies, drummed against the arm of his gilded chair. "The crowd grows impatient," he said to the guard captain beside him. His voice had the texture of honey poured over broken glass, sweet until it cut you. "Release the beast. Let's see how brave this green savage is when facing claws and teeth." The guard captain, a thick-necked man named Willem, who had personally captured Zara 3 days ago at the border, grinned. "She didn't fight much when we took her, my lord. Just stood there, coward in warrior's skin, if you ask me." Marcus leaned forward slightly, studying Zara as she stood in the center of the arena, head down, breathing slow and steady despite the chains. Perhaps. Or perhaps she's simply smart enough to know when she's beaten. Either way, the lion will tell us the truth. Animals always do. Down in the arena, Zara touched the necklace at her throat, the only possession they'd allowed her to keep, probably because they thought it worthless. 7 wolf teeth strung on leather so old it was nearly black, with a small bronze medallion in the center. The medallion was warm against her green skin, warmed by her body heat, and on it was engraved 2 hands clasped together. One hand had claws, one didn't. Her fingers traced the teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 wolves she'd tamed in her youth. 7 different packs. 7 times she'd proven that loyalty didn't see species, only hearts that beat the same rhythm. The medallion had been a gift, 12 years ago, from a human mercenary named Thomas who'd fought beside her in the border wars. He'd died with her name on his lips, and she'd worn his gift ever since. A reminder that not all humans were the same, that some could see past green skin to the soul underneath. The crowd's chanting grew louder. "Chicken, chicken, die now, chicken!" Zara almost smiled. Almost. Chickens, she knew from her travels through human farmlands, were small birds that scattered at loud noises and pecked at grain and laid eggs for breakfast. Harmless, fearful, weak. The comparison would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. The iron gate on the eastern wall of the arena groaned as it began to rise. The mechanism was old, poorly maintained, and the sound it made was like bone scraping against bone. Behind that gate was darkness, and in that darkness something breathed. The breathing was deep, powerful, the kind of breathing that moved massive lungs, that required a chest the size of a barrel. The crowd fell silent. This was the moment they'd paid for. This was the moment where mercy died and entertainment began. The gate rose fully. For 3 heartbeats, nothing emerged. Then, from the darkness, 2 eyes appeared, golden, burning like molten metal. Eyes that had seen death and delivered it. Eyes that belonged to a predator who'd never known defeat in this arena. Ashgar stepped into the sunlight. He was massive, 9 feet long from nose to tail, 400 pounds of corded muscle wrapped in a coat that shone like captured sunlight. His mane was the color of fire, deep red gold that rippled as he moved, so thick it looked like a living thing separate from the lion himself. Scars crisscrossed his shoulders and flanks, silver lines against gold fur, marks from previous arena fights where desperate prisoners had tried and failed to kill him. He'd killed 17 people in this arena, 17 executions. 17 times the crowd had screamed themselves hoarse watching him tear apart whoever was unfortunate enough to be thrown to him. 17 times he'd tasted human blood and human fear. Lord Marcus leaned forward in his seat, practically trembling with anticipation. "There," he whispered. "There's my beautiful boy. Show them what happens to savages who think they can walk in civilized lands." Ashgar's lips pulled back, revealing teeth the length of human fingers. A growl built in his chest, low, subsonic, the kind of sound you felt in your bones before you heard it with your ears. It was the sound that prey heard in their final moments. The sound that said, "You are food, and I am hunger." He began to walk toward Zara, slow, deliberate. Each massive paw left an impression in the blood-soaked sand. His tail lashed side to side, the black tuft at the end cutting the air like a war banner. The crowd erupted, screaming, cheering. Some were already on their feet, pushing forward against the safety rails to get a better view of the coming slaughter. Zara didn't move. She stood perfectly still, chains hanging from her wrists and ankles, the heavy iron collar forcing her to keep her head slightly bowed. Her eyes, green-yellow like forest shadows at dawn, never left the approaching lion. 50 feet separated them, then 40, then 30. Ashgar's growl grew louder, building like distant thunder rolling closer. His muscles bunched and shifted under his golden coat, preparing to spring. His claws extended, black as obsidian and sharp as any blade. 20 feet, 15. "Kill her!" someone screamed from the crowd. "Rip her apart!" The chanting resumed. "Die now, chicken! Die now, chicken!" 10 feet. Ashgar crouched, haunches tensing, tail going still. Every predator instinct in his body focused on the green figure before him. 5 feet. He leaped. 400 pounds of feline fury launched through the air, jaws open wide enough to fit a human head inside, claws spread like knives aimed at Zara's throat. Time seemed to slow. The crowd's screaming became a distant roar, like ocean waves heard from underwater. Zara could see every detail, the flecks of old blood on Ashgar's teeth, the way his eyes narrowed in focus, the ripple of muscle under fur as he flew toward her. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her chained hands to defend herself, didn't close her eyes. She whispered a single word, so soft that no human could possibly hear it over the roar of the crowd. "Ashgar." The lion's body jerked mid-air. His eyes widened. For one impossible moment, 400 pounds of killing machine seemed to forget how gravity worked. He landed, not on Zara, beside her. The impact shook the arena floor, sending up a small cloud of sand that caught the sunlight and turned momentarily golden. Ashgar's claws dug furrows in the earth as he skidded to a stop, his momentum carrying him several feet past where Zara stood. The crowd's roar cut off like someone had severed its throat. 5,000 voices dying in the space of a single heartbeat. The silence that replaced it was so complete, so absolute, that you could hear the torches crackling on the walls, could hear the wind whistling through the ancient stone, could hear Lord Marcus's rings clicking together as his hands clenched the arms of his chair. Ashgar turned, slowly, his massive head swiveling to look back at the green figure he hadn't attacked. Zara met his eyes, those golden eyes that had watched 17 people die, those eyes that had never shown mercy. Something happened in those eyes, a flicker, a recognition. The great lion's nostrils flared. He breathed in, once, twice. His entire body went still in a way that had nothing to do with hunting and everything to do with remembering. Then Ashgar did something he had never done in this arena, something the crowd had never seen, something that made Lord Marcus rise from his chair, face going pale. The lion lowered his head, pressed his muzzle into the sand, and bowed. Not the crouch before a spring, not the stance of a predator stalking prey. A bow, submission. the way a cub bows to its mother, the way a subject bows to their queen. Zara's chains clinked softly as she raised her hands, still bound, still heavy with iron, and placed them on either side of Ashgar's massive head. Her green fingers, each one thick as a human wrist, sank into the golden mane. The fur was coarse and warm and smelled like dust and old blood and something else. Something she remembered. "Hello, old friend," she whispered. This time her voice carried. Not loud, but in the absolute silence of 5,000 shocked humans, even a whisper traveled like thunder. "It's been a long time." The lion made a sound, not a growl, not a roar. A sound that came from deep in his chest and vibrated through his entire body. A sound that big cats make only for those they trust absolutely. He was purring. Lord Marcus found his voice. It came out strangled, confused, furious all at once. What sorcery is this? Guards! Someone explain to me why that beast isn't tearing her apart." But no one answered, because no one had an answer. They were all staring at the impossible scene before them. An orc warrior, chained and condemned, standing in gentle embrace with the arena's most feared killer while he purred like a house cat in the sun. Sister Helena sat in the very back row of the Colosseum, where she always sat during executions. She was 68 years old, blind in her left eye from a childhood accident, and her hands were never without her prayer beads. Those beads clicked softly as her fingers worked through them. One prayer per bead, whispering words of mercy for the condemned, even though she knew mercy never came to this place. But now her fingers had stopped. The beads hung still, because she was witnessing something her prayers had never prepared her for. "Blessed Mother of God," she whispered. The creature, it knows her. The man beside her, a baker who came to executions because he enjoyed them in a way he would never admit to his wife, shook his head slowly. "Impossible. That's Ashgar. He knows nothing but killing. Been that way since Lord Marcus bought him as a cub from the southern traders." Sister Helena's good eye narrowed. Then perhaps Lord Marcus doesn't know everything about what he bought. Down in the arena, Zara's fingers found a spot behind Ashgar's left ear. A small patch where the mane didn't grow quite as thick. She scratched, gently. The lion's purring intensified, so loud now that it echoed off the arena walls like distant drums. "You've grown?" Zara said softly, speaking to the lion as if they were alone, as if 5,000 humans weren't watching, as if chains didn't bind her and guards didn't surround the arena with crossbows ready. "Last time I saw you, you fit in my arms. You were dying, do you remember? Poisoned arrow in your side, fever burning through you. Your mother was dead. The hunters had killed her for sport and left you to rot." Ashgar's golden eyes closed. His breathing slowed. He was listening. "I carried you for 3 days through the Blackwood forest. Fed you meat I chewed myself because you were too weak to eat solid food. Sang you the songs my mother sang to me when I was a cub. Orc lullabies that probably sounded terrible to your ears, but you didn't seem to mind." The memory came back sharp as broken glass. 8 years ago. She'd been younger then. Harder. Still angry at the world for reasons that seemed foolish now. She'd been traveling alone through human territories, selling her services as a mercenary to whoever could pay. War was good business. Morality was expensive. She'd chosen survival. She'd found the lion cub in a hunter's camp, left to die slowly while the hunters drank and laughed about the mother they'd killed. Something in Zara had broken when she saw that. Or maybe something had finally healed. She couldn't tell which. She'd stolen the cub, healed him with herbs and magic her mother had taught her, trained him to hunt, to trust, to be wild in the way nature intended, not in the way humans wanted. And when he was strong enough to survive alone, she'd let him go, because that's what you did for things you loved. You gave them freedom, even when it hurt. She'd never expected to see him again. "How did you end up here?" Zara whispered, her voice breaking for the first time. "In this terrible place. In chains of a different kind." Ashgar opened his eyes. There was intelligence there. Not human intelligence, but something deeper. The kind of knowing that doesn't need words. Lord Marcus's voice cut through the moment like an axe through silk. "Guards, enter the arena. Separate them. Use spears if you must. I want that green-skinned witch's head on a pike before sunset." 20 guards rushed from the gates, armed with long spears and shields. Their armor clanked as they ran, forming a circle around Zara and Ashgar. "Step away from the beast," the guard captain Willem shouted. His voice tried for authority but landed somewhere near fear, because he could see what his men could see, Ashgar's muscles tensing, lips pulling back from teeth again. But this time, those teeth weren't aimed at the orc. They were aimed at the guards. Zara looked up at the surrounding soldiers. Her green face, marked by the scar that ran from her eye to her jaw, showed no fear, only a cold, calculating assessment. She was counting. Counting men. Counting weapons. Counting chances. "I have a question," she said. Her voice carried to every corner of the arena, strong and clear despite the chains. "You humans love your stories of honor, yes? Of fair combat? Of warriors who face death with dignity?" Lord Marcus's face had gone from pale to red. "This savage speaks of honor? She who cavorts with beasts like some barbaric witch?" "Answer my question," Zara said. "Not a request, a demand. Do you value honor?" The crowd murmured. Some shouted yes, some shouted no. Some shouted things that had nothing to do with honor and everything to do with violence. Zara smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who just realized they held better cards than anyone suspected. "Then give me honor. Remove these chains. Give me a sword. Let me fight fair. If your great lion truly wants me dead, he'll kill me anyway. If I'm truly the coward you claim I am, I'll die quickly and your crowd will have their show. But if neither of those things are true—" She paused, letting the words hang. "Then perhaps you should ask yourselves who the real cowards are. The warrior who stands unchained? Or the lords who need iron and beasts to feel brave?" The silence that followed was different than before. This one had weight, had questions in it. Lord Marcus's hands were shaking. With rage, yes, but also with something else. Something that looked suspiciously like fear. "Kill her," he said quietly to the guard captain. "Now, no games, no honor. Put a crossbow bolt through her skull and be done with it." Willem raised his hand, signaling the crossbowmen in the towers. Ashgar roared. It wasn't like his earlier growl. This was something primal. Something that reached back to when lions were gods and humans were prey hiding in caves. The sound hit like a physical force, so loud that several guards dropped their spears to cover their ears. The lion stepped in front of Zara, placed his massive body between her and the guards. His tail lashed, his claws dug into sand. Every inch of him radiated a message that needed no translation. "Touch her and die." "Sweet, merciful God," Sister Helena whispered from her seat in the back. "The beast is protecting her." The guard captain's hand wavered. His men looked at him, looked at the lion, looked at each other. They were soldiers, yes, trained and armed and loyal to their lord, but they were also human. And humans, no matter how brave, had an instinct that whispered, "Don't fight the apex predator unless you have no choice." Did I stutter? Lord Marcus's voice cracked like a whip. "Kill them both!" Willem lowered his hand. The crossbowman fired. 5 bolts flew through the air. 3 were aimed at Zara, 2 at Ashgar. The lion moved. 400 pounds of muscle uncoiled like a spring released. He was fast, faster than anything that large had any right to be. His jaws snapped shut on a crossbow bolt mid-flight, teeth splintering the wood like it was made of straw. His paw batted another bolt away. The third meant for Zara buried itself in the sand where she'd been standing a heartbeat before. Zara had moved too, despite the chains, despite the collar. She was an orc warrior, and orc warriors didn't survive to adulthood by being slow. The 2 bolts meant for Ashgar missed, 1 by inches, 1 by feet. Both buried themselves in the arena sand, quivering like angry insects. The guards rushed forward, no choice now, no going back. It was kill or be killed, and they chose kill. Ashgar met them first. His roar shook dust from the ancient rafters as he crashed into their line like a boulder rolling downhill. Claws that could rend stone tore through leather and chainmail as if they were paper. His jaws closed on a shield and tossed it, and the man holding it, 15 feet through the air. Zara grabbed a dropped spear with her chained hands. The weapon felt wrong, too light, too balanced for human hands instead of orc hands. But it would do. It would have to do. A guard lunged at her. She sidestepped, barely, the chains slowing her, and brought the spear shaft down on his helmet. The clang echoed like a bell. The guard dropped. Another guard, a slash aimed at her neck. She caught his sword between the chain links connecting her wrists, twisted, and the blade snapped like a twig. Her headbutt, even with the collar forcing her head down, caught him square in the face. He went down bleeding. The crowd was screaming again, but this time it wasn't bloodlust. It was confusion, fear. Some were cheering for Zara. Some were cheering for the guards. Some were just screaming because they didn't know what else to do. Lord Marcus stood in his box, knuckles white as he gripped the rail. "More guards. Send everyone. Burn them if you have to. I want them dead." Sister Helena made the sign of the cross, Lord, forgive us, she whispered. We've made monsters of ourselves. The battle lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes of chaos and blood and the kind of violence that would be talked about in taverns for years afterward. When it ended, 17 guards lay unconscious or wounded on the arena floor, not dead. Zara had been careful about that, and Ashgar had somehow understood her intention, but very much not in fighting condition. Zara stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, chains slick with blood that wasn't hers. Ashgar stood beside her, sides heaving, mane matted with dirt and sweat. They looked at each other, woman and beast, orc and lion, two creatures who should have been enemies, standing together while the world watched in stunned silence. Zara touched her necklace again, the wolf teeth, the medallion, the symbol of 2 hands clasped together. Shall we finish this? She asked the lion. Ashgar's answer was to turn toward the royal box where Lord Marcus stood. The lion's eyes found the Lord, held his gaze, and in that moment, Marcus understood something terrible. He was prey. Bar the doors, Marcus said, his voice finally breaking. Bar all the doors. Don't let them. But Zara was already moving. And when an orc warrior decides to move, chains are just suggestions. The iron around her wrists bent. Not broke, not yet, but bent. The metal groaning under pressure that shouldn't have been possible. Her muscles, corded like ship's rope and twice as strong, flexed. Green skin stretched over them, veins bulged. Her tusks ground together with a sound like stones scraping. The crowd watched, some in horror, some in awe. Sister Helena watched in something that looked suspiciously like hope. The right wrist chain snapped first, then the left, then the collar, that hated collar that had forced her head down for 3 days of captivity, split with a sound like a gunshot. Zara stood free, 7 feet of unchained orc warrior, holding a spear she'd taken from an unconscious guard, standing beside a lion who'd killed 17 people but refused to harm the one who'd saved his life. She rolled her shoulders, stretched her neck, felt joints pop as they remembered what freedom felt like. You know what's funny? She said, loud enough for Lord Marcus to hear. You called me chicken. Coward, savage, monster. But chickens don't raise lions. Cowards don't break chains. Savages don't show mercy to unconscious guards. And monsters? She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Monsters are the ones who capture innocence for sport. Marcus's voice came out as a croak. Guards, please, stop her. More soldiers poured into the arena, but they moved slower now, uncertain. Because they'd seen what she and Ashgar had done to their fellows, and because some of them, not all but some, were starting to wonder if maybe they were on the wrong side of this fight. I don't want to kill anyone, Zara said. Not to Marcus, to the soldiers, to the crowd, to anyone who would listen. I came to your land seeking passage, seeking peace. I harmed no one, stole nothing, broke no laws. And you chained me, dragged me here, called me chicken while planning my execution for entertainment. Her voice grew harder, colder, the voice of someone who'd seen too much and forgiven too much and was done with both. I could kill every soldier in this arena, Ashgar and I. We could paint these sands red with your blood. We could make Lord Marcus watch his guards die one by one. We could do to him what he's done to 17 others, throw him to a beast and watch him scream. The soldiers had stopped advancing. They stood in a rough circle, weapons ready but bodies uncertain. But I won't, Zara continued, because I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for one thing only. She turned away from the royal box, away from Marcus, away from all of it. She faced the western gate, the gate that led to the dungeons beneath the Colosseum, the gate that no prisoner was ever meant to pass through twice. I'm here for my sister. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, significant, changing everything. Lord Marcus's face, already pale, went white as sun-bleached bone. Sister Helena stood up in her seat, prayer beads falling from her hands, because she knew. She'd ministered to prisoners in the dungeons for 20 years. She'd seen the other orcs down there, weak, starving, waiting their turn in the arena. And she'd seen the young orc female, green skin lighter than most, eyes full of fear, who'd whispered one name over and over in her cell. Zara. You didn't capture me by accident, did you? Zara's voice was quiet now. Dangerous quiet. You hunted orcs, specifically, deliberately, and when you couldn't catch me, you went after easier prey. She started walking toward the western gate. Slow, measured. Ashgar walked beside her, matching her pace exactly. How long? Zara asked. How long have you been using orcs as entertainment? How many have died in this arena for your profit? Lord Marcus said nothing. But his silence was answer enough. Zara reached the gate. It was iron, heavy, locked from the inside, meant to keep prisoners in and freedom out. She didn't knock. Her fist, the size of a human head and backed by muscle that could bend horseshoes, punched through the iron like it was made of parchment. Metal screamed. Hinges tore from stone that had held them for 300 years. The door fell inward with a crash that shook the entire Colosseum. Beyond the door was darkness, stairs leading down, and the smell. God, the smell. Unwashed bodies, disease, despair, death waiting patiently for its turn. It rolled out of that doorway like toxic fog, making even the guards gag. Zara walked into it without hesitation. Ashgar followed. The lion's eyes adjusted to the darkness immediately, reflecting what little light penetrated down the stairs. 2 golden lamps in the black. The dungeon beneath the Colosseum of red stone was older than the arena itself. Built in a time when this city was just a fortress, these cells had held prisoners of a dozen wars, 100 rebellions, 1,000 forgotten crimes. The stone walls wept moisture that had nothing to do with water and everything to do with misery condensed into liquid form. 30 cells, most empty, 7 occupied, 7 orcs. They looked up as Zara descended the stairs, eyes adjusting to the torch she'd grabbed from the wall, eyes that had forgotten what hope looked like, suddenly remembering. Zara? The voice came from the 3rd cell on the left, young, female, broken in ways that had nothing to do with bones. Kira. She was smaller than Zara. Most orcs were. At 19 years old, she stood only 6.5 feet tall, her green skin a lighter shade, almost olive, that marked her as coming from the coastal clans rather than the mountain tribes. Her eyes were the green-yellow of new spring leaves, and they were staring at her older sister like she was seeing a ghost. "You came," Kira whispered. They said you'd abandoned the family, that you'd turned mercenary and forgotten your blood. I didn't believe them, but after 2 years in this place, I started to wonder if—" "Never." Zara's hands wrapped around the cell bars. Iron. Thick, but iron had rules. It could only be so strong before it became brittle. "I've been searching for you for 2 years. Every city, every rumor, every dead end. They hid you well." The other orcs in the other cells had stood now. 5 males, 1 female besides Kira. All of them thin, weak, fed just enough to stay alive for their arena debuts. One of them spoke. Old. Maybe 70, which was ancient for an orc warrior. He had only 3 tusks remaining, the 4th broken off at the root in some long-ago battle. His voice, when it came, was like gravel rolling downhill, rough, harsh, weighted with years. "Lions remember," he said, just 3 words. But they carried meaning that needed no elaboration. Zara looked at him. "Old Grimjaw, you're alive." "Barely." Another word. Economy of language that only the old and wise could achieve. 2 years here. You? 3 days. A sound that might have been a laugh came from his scarred throat. Efficient. Zara turned back to Kira's cell. The lock was complex, expensive, made by a smith who knew his craft. It would take tools she didn't have and time she couldn't spare to pick it. So she didn't pick it. Her hands wrapped around 2 bars. Her feet braced against the floor. Her back muscles, those massive slabs of meat and sinew that made her shoulders look carved from stone, flexed. She pulled. The sound was incredible. Metal screaming, stone cracking. The bars didn't bend so much as surrender, pulled from their moorings in the ancient stone like teeth ripped from gums. The gap was just wide enough for Kira to squeeze through. She did, and then she was in Zara's arms. And she was crying in the way that people cry when they've forgotten how, until suddenly they remember all at once. "I thought I was going to die here." Kira sobbed into her sister's shoulder. "I thought I'd never see the mountains again. Never feel wind that didn't smell like blood." "Never—" "You're not dying here," Zara said firmly. "None of you are." She moved to the other cells, ripped bars free, 6 more orcs freed. 6 more souls pulled from the edge of an abyss they'd been staring into for months or years. Old Grimjaw was the last out. He stood before Zara, eye to eye, despite his age-stooped posture. His remaining tusks showed when he spoke. The human lord, upstairs. "Rich? Very. Good." Another economical word. "Burn his house down." Zara smiled despite everything. "Maybe. First we need to get out of this city. They won't let us." This from one of the other orcs. Young male, maybe 20. His name was Throck, and his left arm hung useless from a poorly healed break. "Guards everywhere. Gates locked. We're weak. Can barely walk, some of us. We'll be caught before we reach the streets." He wasn't wrong. Zara looked at the 7 orcs she'd freed. Malnourished, wounded, broken in body if not spirit. They couldn't fight, could barely run. If the city guard mobilized, they'd be recaptured or killed before they reached the walls. A small sound drew her attention. The youngest orc, barely more than a child at 6 years old. His name was Thrak, and he'd been captured alone after bandits killed his parents. He'd been in these cells for 4 months, waiting his turn in the arena, waiting to be entertainment. He was clutching something in his small green hands. Stones, colorful pebbles he'd collected from the dungeon floor. Each one had a name scratched onto it in Orcish runes. Mora, Keth, Thak, Gina, names of his dead family. He looked up at Zara with eyes too old for his young face. Are you going to leave us? The question hit harder than any guard's sword, because Zara could leave. Ashgar and she could fight through the guards, escape over the city walls, disappear into the wilderness. She was strong, fast, free, but these 7, they couldn't follow. They'd slow her down, get her caught, get her killed. The smart choice was obvious. Zara knelt down until she was eye level with young Thrak. Her massive hand, scarred from 100 fights, gently touched the stones he held. What are their names? She asked softly. Thrak's voice trembled. Mora was my mother. Keth was my father. Thak was my brother. Gina was my sister. Where are they now? Dead. The bandits killed them. I ran. I was a coward. I ran and they died and I lived and I shouldn't have. You survived, Zara interrupted. Survival isn't cowardice. It's strength. Your family died protecting you, protecting your chance to live. You honor them by living, not by dying. Tears ran down Thrak's green face, leaving clean trails through dungeon dirt. But I'm alone now. Zara touched her necklace. The 7 wolf teeth. The bronze medallion with its symbol of clasped hands, one clawed, one not. She removed it. For the first time in 12 years, she took off the necklace that had never left her throat. The leather felt strange leaving her skin, like removing a piece of herself. She placed it in Thrak's small hands. The necklace looked huge on him. The medallion hung to his chest. You're not alone, Zara said. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who stands beside you when the world wants you dead. These 6 orcs, Ashgar, me, we're your family now, and families don't abandon each other. Kira's voice was soft behind her. Zara, if we stay, we all die. You know that. The smart thing is, I'm done being smart. Zara stood, turning to face her sister and the others. Smart got me nowhere. Smart made me a mercenary who fought other people's wars for coin. Smart made me abandon my clan to seek fortune. Smart made me turn my back on our people because I thought survival mattered more than loyalty. She looked at Ashgar. The lion sat calmly, watching, always watching. 8 years ago, I found a dying lion cub. The smart thing was to leave him, to preserve my energy for my own survival. But I didn't. I saved him, raised him, gave him freedom when he was strong enough to survive alone. And today, that choice saved my life. Her voice grew harder. I'm done being smart. Smart is what cowards call themselves when they run. From now on, I'm being loyal. And loyalty says I don't leave family behind. Old Grimjaw made that sound again. Almost a laugh. Inspiring speech. Still doesn't solve problem. How we escape? Zara smiled. It was a terrible smile. The smile of someone who'd just decided that impossible was just another word for hasn't been done yet. We don't escape, she said. We negotiate. The walk back up the dungeon stairs was different from the walk down. Slower. 7 weak orcs climbing toward light they'd thought they'd never see again. Ashgar led the way, massive and golden and impossible to ignore. Zara came last, making sure no one fell behind. They emerged into the arena. The crowd was still there, 5,000 humans who hadn't left because they didn't know how to process what they were seeing. Entertainment had turned into something else, something uncomfortable, something that maybe asked questions they didn't want to answer. The guards had formed a wall between the dungeon entrance and the rest of the arena. 50 men, armed, armored, afraid but holding formation because soldiers did that even when they wanted to run. Lord Marcus stood in his royal box. He'd regained some composure. Some color had returned to his face. He looked down at Zara and the freed prisoners, like a king looking at rebellious peasants. You've made your point, he called down. His voice had regained its honey over glass quality. You're strong, unusual, perhaps even worthy of study. I propose a deal. Leave now. Take your companions. Leave my city. Never return. and I'll consider this matter settled." Sister Helena, still standing in the back row, shook her head. "He's lying," she whispered to no one in particular. "I can hear it in his voice. He'll send assassins, hunters. He'll kill them all the moment they leave these walls." Zara heard her. Orc hearing was sharp, and the old nun's whisper carried further than she intended. "No deal," Zara said simply. Marcus's face darkened. "Then you're a fool. My guards will cut you down. You might kill many of them. I acknowledge your strength, but they'll kill you eventually. You and your diseased companions. Is that how you want this to end? Dying in the sand for nothing? I don't plan to die here." "Then accept my offer." "I said no deal, because your offer is a lie." Zara's voice carried to every corner of the arena. "You'll let us walk to the gates, maybe even through the gates, but we won't make it a mile before your hunters find us. You can't let us live. We're too dangerous. We've seen too much. We know what you do in this place." The crowd murmured, some in agreement, some in denial, some just processing the fact that the green savage was making sense. Marcus's hands gripped the rail. "Then what do you want? Name your price. Gold? Land? I'm a reasonable man." Zara laughed. It was a harsh sound, bitter. "Reasonable men don't throw people to lions for entertainment. But since you ask, I want 3 things." She held up one green finger. "First, every orc in your dungeons, not just these 7, but any others you're hiding, goes free. You put them on horses, give them supplies, and let them ride for the border unmolested." Second finger. "Second, you pay them each 100 gold coins, compensation for imprisonment, for torture, for the friends they watch die in your arena." Third finger. "Third, you ban orc executions from this Colosseum, forever. Write it into law, break that law, and I'll hear about it. And I'll come back." The arena was silent. The demands hung in the air like smoke. Lord Marcus stared at her. Then he laughed. It started small and grew larger, echoing off the ancient stones until it sounded like a chorus of mockery. You think you can dictate terms to me? You're standing in my arena, in my city, surrounded by my guards. You have no leverage, no power. You're a savage with a stolen lion and delusions of importance." Zara didn't smile, didn't laugh, just stared up at the Lord with those green-yellow eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by gold or titles. "I have more leverage than you think," she said quietly. She looked at Sister Helena. The old nun met her eyes across the distance of the arena. Zara had seen her before. During her 3 days in the cells, the old woman had come, brought water, whispered prayers, shown kindness when she didn't have to. "Sister," Zara called out, "you tend the prisoners here. You've seen them die. Tell these people. How many orcs have been executed in this arena? How many have died for entertainment?" Sister Helena stood. Her old bones protested, but she stood anyway, because some moments demanded you stand even when it hurt. 43, she said. Her voice was thin but clear. 43 orcs in the past 7 years. Some were criminals. Some were captured in war. Most were just travelers who had the misfortune of being green in human lands. The crowd's murmur grew louder, uncomfortable. Zara nodded. 43. And did any of them receive trial? Fair hearing? Chance to defend themselves? Sister Helena's voice cracked. No, they were sentenced the moment they were captured. And the gold made from these executions? The ticket sales? The betting? Where does it go? The old nun's good eye turned to Lord Marcus, to the Lord's coffers, and to the pockets of those who run this Colosseum. Marcus's face had gone red. This woman speaks lies. She's a religious fool who... I speak truth. Sister Helena's voice was stronger now. Righteous anger giving power to old lungs. I've kept records, names, dates, crimes they were accused of, crimes they actually committed. I've documented every execution for 20 years. Would you like me to read them aloud, my lord? The silence was different now, tense, dangerous, because the crowd was starting to realize something uncomfortable. They'd been complicit. They'd bought tickets, placed bets, cheered for deaths, participated in something that looked a lot like murder when you removed the entertainment veneer. Zara let the silence work. Then she spoke again, softer. I don't want your gold, Lord Marcus. I don't want your land. I don't even want your blood, though you deserve to bleed. I want justice for 43 orcs who died in this sand, for 7 who nearly did, for every orc who'll be captured tomorrow if this continues. She touched her bare throat where the necklace used to hang, felt its absence like a missing tooth. My mother taught me something before she died. She said that some fights you win with swords, some you win with words, and some you win by making the enemy realize they've already lost. Lord Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. What do you mean? Zara gestured to the arena, to the guards, to the crowd. Look around you, really look. Your guards haven't attacked. They could have rushed us 5 minutes ago, ended this, but they haven't. Why? The guard captain, Willem, shifted uncomfortably. He didn't answer. Because they know, Zara continued. They know that if they attack, some of them will die. Maybe all of them. And they're starting to ask themselves, is protecting your prophet worth their lives? She turned to the crowd. And you, 5,000 humans who came here for entertainment. Bloodsport. Watching the savage die. How many of you still want that? How many of you look at these 7 starving orcs and feel proud of what's happened here? No one answered. Some looked away. Some looked down. Some met her eyes with expressions that ranged from shame to defiance. You've already lost, Zara said to Lord Marcus. You just don't know it yet, because I'm not leaving, and I'm not dying, and I'm not letting these 7 go back in chains, which means you have 2 choices. She held up one finger. Choice 1, give me what I asked for. Free the orcs, pay them, ban the executions, take the loss of profit and keep your life. Second finger. Choice 2, send your guards to kill us. We'll fight. We'll die. Probably. But we'll take a lot of guards with us. And then what? Word spreads that Lord Marcus killed an orc who'd already freed prisoners and was negotiating for peace. That he chose violence over justice. How long before your own people start asking if you're the savage? She lowered her hands. Your move, my lord. The silence stretched. Seconds became minutes. The sun, which had been high when Zara first entered the arena, had moved noticeably across the sky. Finally, Lord Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet, defeated. How do I know you'll keep your word? That you won't come back for revenge? Zara looked at young Thrak. The child still held her necklace, clutching it like a lifeline. Because revenge is expensive, she said. And I've already spent too much of my life on expensive things that gave me nothing. I don't want revenge. I want these 7 to live. I want future orcs to have a chance. I want the hate to stop, even if just in this one city. She met Marcus's eyes. Give me that, and you'll never see me again. Lord Marcus stared at her, calculating, weighing, trying to find the angle, the trick, the deception. But there was none. She was simply telling the truth. Fine, he said eventually. The word came out like he was coughing up poison. Fine, the orcs go free, 100 gold each, and I'll ban orc executions from this Colosseum. Write it, now, in front of witnesses. A scribe was summoned, parchment brought. Marcus wrote the decree with hands that shook. From rage or fear, it was impossible to tell. He signed it, sealed it with his ring, handed it to Sister Helena to witness. The old nun read it carefully, nodded. It's binding. Zara took the parchment, rolled it carefully, tucked it into her belt. Horses, she reminded him. Supplies, 7 days' worth of food and water. And don't send hunters after us. I won't. Marcus's voice was hollow. You have my word. Your word is worthless. But I'll trust the sisters' documentation of this agreement. And if you break it, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The horses were brought, 7 of them. Not the finest in Marcus's stables, but healthy. Strong enough to carry weakened orcs. The gold was counted out. 700 coins total. More wealth than most of these orcs had seen in their lives. The supplies were loaded. Food, water, medicine, blankets, weapons. Basic ones, but weapons nonetheless. Kira approached Zara as the others prepared to leave. Her eyes were wet. You're not coming with us. It wasn't a question. Zara shook her head. I can't. Not yet. Why? Zara, you won. We're free. You can finally rest. Finally. I don't deserve rest. Zara's voice was soft. Not after what I've been. Not after the wars I fought for gold. The people I hurt for coin. I've been running from who I should be for too long. Kira touched her sister's face. Green fingers on green skin. Family recognizing family. What will you do? Zara looked at Ashgar. The lion sat quietly, golden eyes reflecting afternoon sun. I'm going to build something. A place where orcs who have nowhere else to go can find safety. Where humans who see past skin color can learn that we're not monsters. Where creatures like Ashgar aren't turned into killers for profit. That's impossible. Humans and orcs, living together, learning together. Probably. Zara smiled. It was a sad smile. The smile of someone who knows the odds but chooses to try anyway. But impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. Old Grimjaw approached. He looked at Zara, at the space where her necklace used to hang, at young Thrak who wore it now. Good choice, he said. 3 words. Economy of language. But they meant, I see you. I understand. I approve. He handed her something. A small carving, wood-worn smooth from handling. It depicted a lion and an orc standing side by side. Made it, while waiting to die. Or whoever freed us. Didn't think it would be you. Zara took the carving, felt its weight, its meaning. Thank you. Thank you. Old Grimjaw's remaining tusks showed in what might have been a smile. Then he turned and walked to the horses, mounted up despite his age and weakness, led the others toward the arena gates, toward freedom. Kira was the last to mount. She looked back at her sister one final time. Will I see you again? Yes, Zara said, and meant it. When I've built something worth seeing. Come find me in the borderlands. Look for the place where lions and orcs live together. That's insane. Probably. But sanity is overrated. Kira laughed. Actually laughed. The first time in 2 years. Then she rode out with the others, following Old Grimjaw through gates that opened for them like miracles. Zara watched them go. Watched until they were specks on the horizon. Watched until the dust from their horses' hooves settled back to earth. The arena was empty now. Guards had withdrawn. Crowd dispersed. Even Lord Marcus had retreated to his manor, probably to drink himself into forgetting this day. Only Zara and Ashgar remained, and Sister Helena, walking slowly down from her seat, old bones protesting every step. She reached the arena floor, stood before Zara, looked up at the orc who towered over her. You're making a mistake, the old nun said, trying to build peace between humans and orcs. It won't work. The hate is too deep, too old. Maybe, Zara acknowledged. You'll probably fail. Die trying. Be forgotten. Probably. So why do it? Zara touched the wooden carving Old Grimjaw had given her. Lion and orc, side by side. Impossible. Insane. Perfect. Because someone has to, she said simply. Someone has to try, even if they fail, even if no one remembers. Someone has to stand in the gap and say, enough. Say, this hate ends here. Say, I'd rather die trying to build peace than live comfortably in war. Sister Helena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her robes and pulled out her prayer beads. The ones she'd dropped earlier. The ones she'd used to pray for mercy that never came. She handed them to Zara. Take these. You'll need prayer more than I will, I think. The path you're walking, it's thornier than any I've known. Zara took the beads. They felt fragile in her massive hands. Delicate. Like they might break if she wasn't careful. Like everything worth protecting. Thank you, sister. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've built your impossible dream. Thank me when orcs and humans live together without killing each other. Thank me when... She paused. Actually, if you achieve that, I'll probably be dead. I'm 68. How long do you think this will take? Zara smiled despite everything. Longer than either of us will live to see, probably. Then I'll pray that someone sees it. Someone in the future. Someone who'll look back and remember the orc warrior who wouldn't leave her family behind. Sister Helena turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. What will you call this place, this impossible sanctuary? Zara hadn't thought about it, but the answer came immediately, as if it had been waiting in her heart all along. The Haven of Clasped Hands, she said, where clawed and unclawed meet as equals. The old nun nodded. Good name. I'll spread word. Tell travelers, refugees, anyone who will listen. Maybe some will come. Maybe, Zara agreed. And if even one comes, it'll be enough. Sister Helena walked away. Slow, old, but with purpose in her steps that hadn't been there before. Zara stood alone with Ashgar in the empty arena. The sun was setting now, painting the sand gold and red, like fire, like blood, like new beginnings written over old endings. Well, she said to the lion, ready to do something impossible? Ashgar's answer was to stand, to walk beside her, to match her stride as they moved toward the gates, toward the future, toward whatever came next. 6 months later. The borderlands were called that because they belonged to no kingdom. Too wild for humans, too exposed for orcs. A no man's land where only the desperate or the foolish ventured, perfect for building something new. The Haven of Clasped Hands consisted of 12 structures, 7 made of orc-style timber and hide, 3 made of human stone and mortar, 2 that mixed both styles in ways that looked strange but worked, 23 residents, 15 orcs, 6 humans, 1 wolf, 1 lion. It wasn't much, wasn't impressive, wasn't the grand sanctuary Zara had envisioned, but it was a start. Zara stood at the edge of the small settlement, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Ashgar lay beside her, old war wound giving him a slight limp but otherwise healthy, thriving even. A sound made her turn. Young Thrak, not so young anymore, growing taller by the day, approached carrying her old necklace. He still wore it sometimes. Today it hung around his neck, the bronze medallion catching morning light. More travelers came last night, he said. His common speech had improved over the months. 2 orcs from the northern clans, 1 human family running from debt collectors. Sister Helena sent them. The sister still lives. Apparently, she's stubborn. Good. Zara smiled. Stubbornness is underrated. Thrak sat beside her. He'd grown in more than height. The fear in his eyes had been replaced by something else. Not quite hope, not quite peace, but the possibility of both. Do you think it'll work? He asked. Really work? Humans and orcs living together? Zara looked at the settlement, at the mixed architecture, at the orc teaching a human child how to tan leather, at the human blacksmith showing an orc how to forge horseshoes, at the wolf and the lion sharing space in the same paddock. Small moments, ordinary moments, moments that most would overlook, but moments that mattered. I don't know, Zara admitted. Maybe we'll fail. Maybe in 10 years this place will be abandoned ruins. Maybe the old hatreds are too strong to overcome. She touched the wooden carving old Grimjaw had given her. She'd mounted it above the entrance to the main hall. Lion and orc, side by side. Impossible. Beautiful. But maybe we'll succeed. Maybe in 50 years there'll be a dozen places like this. Maybe in 100 years, someone will look back and wonder why orcs and humans ever hated each other at all. Thrak fingered the necklace, the 7 wolf teeth, the bronze medallion with its symbol of clasped hands. What did Sister Helena's beads say? He asked. The prayer beads she gave you? Zara pulled them from her pocket. She'd memorized the prayer weeks ago. Words in a human language that somehow felt right when she spoke them. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's a good prayer. Yes, Zara agreed. Yes, it is. They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher, painting the world in gold and green and red and brown, colors that didn't fight, just existed together. And in that small settlement on the border of nowhere, 23 souls learned the same lesson. Blood makes you orc or human, but loyalty, true loyalty that sees past skin to soul, loyalty makes you family, and family is worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible, especially then. Tiumamor. What would you sacrifice for those who can't fight for themselves? Would you stand in the gap between hate and hope, knowing you might fail? Would you choose loyalty over safety, family over survival? The bravest warriors aren't always those who fight with swords. Sometimes they're the ones who fight with stubborn hope, who build when others destroy, who choose light in a world that profits from darkness. Zara chose. So did Ashgar. So did Sister Helena. So did 7 freed prisoners who became the foundation of something impossible. What will you choose?